Hey everybody, Ed home at Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. I hope everyone's doing well today. Today we're going to revisit the Geshelli Dayzee DAC. I made some modifications, made some upgrades, made some changes. So sit back, relax. We're going to talk about how this thing got really good. So many of you may know, I already reviewed the Geshelli Dayzee DAC once. But since then, there's been some changes. One of the big ones is, I don't know if you can see it, you see the lights inside? I was on Amazon and I found this little strip of self-adhesive LED lights with a little battery pack. And I thought it would be fun to put them in there just because, I don't want them flashing, just because I think it looked cool with the Lexan case. So anyway, what a difference in sound that made. Oh my God, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I just think it looks cool. So, there have been some changes, and some significant ones. The first one was Andrew Sparks at Sparkos Laboratories was kind enough to send me 8 of the 2590 op amps, and so I replaced the standard TI 1656s with the Sparkos op amps. And what kind of change did that make? Well, I let it burn in for about a week. And I noticed, and I'm going to talk about single-ended and balanced, almost like this is two separate DACs. On single-ended, there was an improvement. Look, at $1,200, the Geshelli DAC is a very good DAC. Excellent sounding. Does it stand head and shoulders above other DACs in that price category? No. And if it does, maybe just a little bit. Maybe it's got a little bit of a lift in its shoes. I just like the AKM sound very much. I like it much better than most ESS Sabre chips, especially in this price range, you know, the stuff from Topping and SMSL and those kinds of products. So it is a very good DAC. Now, when I put the op amps in, that made a significant difference. On single-ended, things got much more dynamic, I think. There was a definite improvement in the dynamics, not night and day, but enough to be noticeable and to be welcomed. The question then becomes, is it enough to justify the $480 worth of extra op amps? That's a judgment call on your part. I think it's about a break even. I think you got a bump in performance equal to that price for those op amps. Again, I thought more drive to the music. It was clear. There was a little more, the transients seemed to be a little bit better. I think part of Geshelli's magic too is I think Gino, when he voices these things, he builds in just a smidge of extra low end. And it's very welcome. In my case, it's very welcome. I'd rather have a little more bass than too little bass. So these always have had very good bass response. And with the upgraded Sparkos op amps, again, that bass response was even a little bit better defined, a little clearer, a little better pacing to it. And I just thought that was a good enough improvement to just about justify the additional cost for the op amps. Now on the balanced side with the op amps, I always thought the DAC sounded best on its balanced output, even with the stock op amps and everything else being stock. Putting the 2590s in there elevated the balance output significantly. I felt that there was, I think there was a little more voltage coming out of the balance connectors. It seemed a little bit louder. It was far more dynamic. I think bass lines, again, were much better rendered, and I felt like I was hearing deeper into that. I felt like I was hearing deeper into all of the music really throughout the frequency range. Mid-range stayed real clean. Shading toward warm, but neutral shading toward warm. When you get in the upper frequencies, and just so you guys understand, for me, upper frequency started about 5,000 cycles. I'm kind of up at the top end of the right hand of the piano. In that area, things remain nice and smooth, that AKM smoothness in the high frequencies, but I felt like there was better sense of room cues, the sense of air, the sense of space, the sense of, the decay seemed to be a little better defined. There was more kind of, I guess, the edges and notes seemed to be, a little sharper, a little better defined than that. So I thought, now at that point, that $480 for the extra op amps, well worth it. It elevated this to the point where we were knocking on the door of the Pontus 12H that I reviewed recently. I have not done a Pontus 15th anniversary, so I can't speak to that, but this thing was knocking on the door of the 12H as far as resolution and everything else. Now, one of the things that this does do better than the Pontus that I reviewed is bass response. Ladder DACs can be a little bit light. Some of them can be a little bit light in bass. This does a better job than that. I think better definition, better depth, better speed, better pace, and a better left-right imaging on bass, because there can be imaging cues in the bass in the lower frequencies. So then what was the next controversial thing I did? Keyboard warriors, fire up your comment section. I used the SMSL P0100 Pro DDC Reclocker. I fed it USB in from my Artivana PC, came out either on coax or on optical into the Dayzee, and that changed things very nicely. So, $70 upgrade in the DDC elevated this another notch, maybe two. What did I hear? Well, as you guys know, a DDC takes the incoming USB signal, which still is full of jitter. I mean, remember, USB is asynchronous, and for DACs, if it detects corrupted packets, it can ask for resend. Well, what corrupts those packets? Jitter. And I know you guys are going to light up the comments about that. This is my understanding of it, and it's what I've read, it's what I've heard from engineers. I'm going to leave it at that. Call it my opinion if you want to. But, so there's still jitter in USB. This takes the USB signal, runs it through an XMOS processor, like a lot of DACs use XMOS processors, which are kind of like a FPGA. They're a programmable device that you can use for noise shaping, jitter reduction, pre-signal processing, latch circuitry, and all that kind of stuff. Well, we're doing it twice. So there is a circuit inside the Dayzee that does that. I'm adding one in front of it. So it's like rinsing your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. It just makes sure they come out extra clean. So the cleaner the signal this has, the better the DAC can resolve the detail and the information of the ones and zeros. Ones and zeros don't change, but the noise that goes along with them affects how a piece of gear can read those ones and zeros and how cleanly it can respond to those ones and zeros. If it was perfect, then a CD player wouldn't need CIRC error reduction. You wouldn't need any error correction on any digital circuit if everything was perfect. So take that with a grain of salt. So it elevated this to a level equal to, without question, equal to the Pontus 12H as far as everything. Imaging, dynamics, spatial cues, transient response, all of that. Really, really good. This became a real contender for one of the best DACs I've heard in its price range for sure. Now we're up to $1,680 though. $1,200 for the DAC and $480 for the Sparkos op amps. Well, let's make it crazier still. Oh yeah, we used a linear power supply, the FIO PL50. And again, I know there's going to be some keyboards clattering on this. What does a power supply do? Power supply takes the AC from your wall, converts it to DC. Now, in a switch mode power supply, it does that by high-speed switching back and forth, very much like a Class D amplifier. It's switching back and forth to get to the 12-volt signal, but that switching creates noise in the line, and it has to be filtered out. Well, if all you got is a little wall wart, I'm sorry, there's not a lot of filtering in that. They might be fine. They may provide the right power for this to operate correctly. And remember, a lot of folks that engineer products like this aren't audiophiles, they're engineers. And so they look at an oscilloscope, and to them, that's all that matters. I'm not a measurements guy. I don't discount the value of a measurement, but I don't believe you can hear a measurement. I also don't believe a measurement can give you any indication of the performance of a product sonically. So yeah, the comments are going to blow up on that one. So a linear power supply gives you ripple-free 12 volt. There's no switching. It has got big capacitance, it's got a big toroidal transformer inside, and it just gives you good, clean 12 volts. Now, if there's no 12 volt noise going into this, because that 12 volt signal, that voltage permeates the entire circuit board because everything runs on the 12 volt circuit. So by having clean power running throughout all of the circuitry of the unit, obviously, it's got a clean power base to work from. There's no oscillation, no switching noise in there that can cause components to either oscillate or vary in their tolerances because of varying voltages or noise in the line. And I know, again, light up the comments all you want. With the power supply in it, the background on this thing got absolutely outer space. Well, no, that's not a fair thing. Dark room, dark, just as inky black as I could imagine. Really good. The noise floor was just so low. All of a sudden, there was so much more detail being really revealed to me on transients, on you know, decays on room sense, imaging cues, everything just got a notch or two better, without question. That elevated this to, of all the DACs I've reviewed this year, this is number 2. The Live Harmony is still the best DAC I've heard and reviewed in my room, and probably the best DAC I've heard in a number of years. This is now the second best DAC I've heard in a number of years. It is just absolutely marvelous. So I think at that point we're at $1,680, add 120 if you can still get them. And I've talked to Fio, they're going to try and restock the Ollie store. Look, there are other linear power supplies out there, and if you're looking at something 70, 80, 90, $100 or in that price range, I think you're fine. Pine Tree Audio makes some really good ones, although they're expensive. You know, I think a good, well-regulated linear power supply, and yeah, you can get them on AliExpress, and I'm not that scared of AliExpress buying on there because I've always had a good result. But anyway, a good linear power supply will elevate this. I like this one because it comes from a brand that everybody knows, Fio. And if they have them in stock, you're buying them from them on their storefront. I have no affiliation with them, by the way. So that combination, all of these together, op amps, the DDC, the linear power supply, this thing is amazing sounding. It is absolutely remarkable, and it is a noticeable difference because I can do A-B switching back and forth. And when I'm listening to the Live Harmony and I switch down to this, the differences they're noticeable, but they're very subtle. I think with the Dayzee, with the op amps, with the DDC, with the linear power supply, you're probably getting 75 or 80% of the performance of the Live Harmony for probably, 70% of the price? So I think that's a really good, at that point, it's a compelling value. There are some things that the Live Harmony does. Look, there's an old axiom in auto racing. How fast you want to go is equal to how much money you have to spend. So Formula One teams will spend, $10 million to get an extra 0.2 of a second on a lap. As you get higher up, there is such a thing as the law of diminishing returns. Yes, the Live Harmony is $2,700. Is it $1,000 better than this? Close. But and the details are really subtle. All of that is in nuance. It's in the really fine details. And you really got to value those differences to actually then be able to justify what you're spending on all of this. If you hear a difference and you don't care, then don't spend the money on it. If you're happy with a $250 DAC, then be happy with your $250 DAC. My task, what I've assigned myself to do, is tell you guys about what I hear. And then you guys make your own decision from that point. So anyway, all of these changes put this into the premiership, absolutely elevated it to one of the very best DACs I've ever heard. Just amazing. And I think, again, at around $1,800 or so bucks, I think it's a good value. I think it really is. Now, I do have a bit of a gripe. I wish it wasn't so damn big. But on the other side, I'm grateful because as a reviewer, I've got 2 optical in, I've got 2 coax in, I've got a USB-B in, I've got ASEB-U in, I've got 4 single-ended outputs, 2 balanced outputs. So I can plug this thing into the system and plug any number of things into it. So I can run it into 2 different amp, preamp, whatever combinations I want to at the same time without playing cable Olympics. And in my case, that becomes valuable at some point. But that said, I'd be happy to trade that off to get something a little bit smaller that still has the dual AKM chipset. And I understand they're physically large and they take up space. So anyway, that's the only thing I can say about it. I love this thing. I'm going to hate to have to send it back to Gino and Sherry. It is really remarkably good sounding. And it is demonstrably good sounding. I had some family over for the holidays, and I would say, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And to a person, everybody thought, and none of them are audiophiles, really. That'll tell you how much a difference it is. Everybody thought this sounded better than some of the other options that I played for them. And that's that. So I'm a big believer in linear power supplies. I am very much a firm believer in the DDC Reclocker, and I've got some other ones coming in that we'll talk about soon. And I really think that the Sparkos op amps made a big difference in this. Now, pro tip for you guys looking at any DAC that has swappable op amps, don't do it right away. Listen to the DAC for 90 or 120 days before you make a change. If you don't know what it sounds like out of the box, how are you going to know whether or not that money you spent on those op amps was worth it, right? You got to get used to the sound, then make a change, then determine whether or not that change is valuable to you. So listen to your DAC for 90 days, 120 days before you ever think about buying an op amp. And then when you do, when you swap it, you'll be able to better be able to hear if it made a positive difference or not. So that's a very important thing. Don't do it until you know what it sounds like out of the box. Same with the power supply, same with the DDC. And only make one change in your system at a time. If you make more than one change, you'll never know what change had the influence, or had a positive influence or had a negative influence to your system. So one change at a time, listen to it with the stock configuration for at least 90 or 120 days. And then if you got the bug, you can think about doing it, because these things sound great out of the box, I'm telling you. Okay, well, that's a big, long, rambling, crazy video. I can't wait to see what the comments say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you did. Hopefully it was not that controversial. Anyway, if you'd like to support the channel, there is a thank you button at the bottom of the video window. There's a membership link in the pinned description and in the video description. I would really very much appreciate your like and subscription. About 60% of the folks that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and it would really help the channel. And obviously, the channel is growing marvelously, and thank you so much to my members and my subscribers and all of the viewers. I'm getting more and more manufacturers are willing to send me gear, but the more I can grow that subscription base, and again, remember guys, I'm not in this for the money. Any of the money I earn from any of this helps to go defray expenses like more expensive lights. And I got a new camera, and I've got some new microphones, which now you can hear me talk. Maybe that's not a good thing. And just shipping and receiving and all of those kinds of things. But having a good subscriber count means that bigger manufacturers or important manufacturers like the folks at Linear Tube Audio or Opera or TX send me I got a beautiful stack of TX, the reference gear. As my membership count grows, my subscribership count grows, they're more willing to send me gear. So hopefully I can make some fun videos you guys enjoy, learn something from, maybe get some question answered, whatever. So like, subscribe, please. There are affiliate links in the video description. You know the drill on those. Comment, but please, let's keep it polite and let's keep it nice. And you know what? If you believe in measurements, that you're fine. It's totally fine with me. I don't care. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I don't sit in my chair with a calibrated microphone and an oscilloscope and wonder whether or not my system is, reproducing 20 to 20 hertz with a SINAD of 100 million dB. I don't care. Does it sound good? Am I enjoying it? Am I tapping my foot? Is it making me want to listen to that piece of gear longer? Those are the benchmarks for me, period, end of story. And if you agree with me, that's great. If you don't, that's fine. But you don't have to be nasty about it in the comments. So like, subscribe, comment, follow me on Instagram if you want to. This one ought to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, so much. My name's Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel. No controversy here at all. I promise you, none whatsoever. Anyway, sit back, relax, grab your keyboard, and rip me up in the comments if you want to. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day.